The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
WWE Developmental NXT.
Hello and welcome to the Wrestling to the Max WWE NXT review for March 8th, 2017. And I'm your host, Sean Garmer, here. Only Gary here with me.
Hey, I'm here.
As, don't know, Paul either fell asleep or we have no idea. Right now. So,
yeah.
But hey, maybe we'll get him for the W10 Part 2 that of course we do after we do NXT every week. So, make sure if you haven't listened to that yet, you want to, because we're doing our New Japan Cup 2017 predictions and talking about a new signing for WWE on the women's side coming in. And a few other things that you're going to want to listen to. Of course, the first Impact re-debut again for like the 50th time that they've re-debuted. We got to talk about that, so you don't want to miss it. Plenty to discuss there, but we're here to talk about NXT, Gary. And they started off NXT with the supposed to be Eric Young and Ty Dillinger, but before that match can really get started, the rest of Sanity come out and they just drag Roderick Strong in his non-wrestling attire out there to have Ty Dillinger have to watch him beaten to a pulp on the ramp as the rest of the crew are just happy to watch their spoils. And then No Way Jose comes out to even the odds a bit for Ty Dillinger, but obviously they're going to overwhelm them. And once again, Sanity using their numbers, taking out Ty Dillinger and friends.
Yeah, I mean, this is something where I was kind of wondering, okay, what's the point in this? And I think the point in this is just to continue on with the whole, Sanity is going to torture Ty Dillinger as long as they can. And how do they torture him besides beating him up is about beating up the guys that have been there to support him. So, this makes sense. I can't say I loved it. I mean, I think it's good for Sanity because it shows that they're smart. It shows that, they're tough to hold on and beat up because they got two huge guys. And, I mean, let's be honest, Eric Young's not bad himself. Even if you don't like the guy, he's not a bad wrestler. So, and not only that, they have Nikki Cross there too. So they have all the intangibles here to be a dominant force, and they can outsmart you, kind of like they did here with Ty Dillinger. He really thought that Eric Young was going to have a one-on-one match with him, and that definitely did not happen. So, outside of that, though, I can't say I loved this. I may not have hated it, but I'm closer to that than I am loving it. It really didn't do anything for me, to be honest with you. It just kind of furthers the storyline that I know about, Yeah,
I mean, it's there. Just like you said, it just furthers the storyline. It is what it is right now. They're kind of trying to build people around Ty to kind of even the odds each week, it looks like. And I'm fine with that. Let's use some of the rest of the NXT roster that we don't get to see that much. So
yeah, and that's the thing. And I mean, I'm not trying to knock this completely, but I will say this: they took a long time for this to all happen and take place. I really felt like they wanted to do it shorter. They could have, and they maybe would have. For some other reason, though, that they're making this little lengthy. And I just didn't like that. I think, you just mentioned it, Sean. There's other NXT talent, on this roster you could showcase. So maybe cut this a little shorter and showcase another wrestler or two, have them come out there, even if it's a squash match. showcase somebody else. Let's get somebody else besides having this drag out. And I kind of felt like they drug this out longer than it needed to be.
Yeah, they did. Certainly. I can understand what you're saying. It felt like something that should have been a couple of minutes or 5 minutes or, less than the time that they gave it.
Mm-hmm.
But they dragged that out a little bit. And, they know that they're what their structure of their show is. And, I mean, we know at this point that a lot of what NXT is a bunch of squash matches with your one main event. They might mean something. So sometimes these segments have to go a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And after this, we have Billie Kay and Peyton Royce are at the Performance Center. They're looking for where they can put their Breakout Star of the Year award. Ember Moon is in this. She's also working out in this other room, but there's glass where they can see each other, and they're kind of making fun of Ember Moon, and she's getting angry about it without saying anything. So they're sort of making fun of her while she's getting angry, and I mean, it kind of means something because Ember Moon does have a match with Peyton Royce here, and basically, or not Peyton Royce, but Billie Kay, sorry. And Ember Moon winds up beating her with the Eclipse, which sort of stung Billie Kay a little bit. Don't know if this was all done to kind of put over how crazy awesome that move is and how devastating it is, or if she really did get hurt and it just wound up not being as serious as it could have been. But, I mean, that is something that we've talked about before, that move can lead, if you don't take it right, it can be a problem.
Yeah, and that is definitely a big risk. I don't know per se if whether this is real, not real, whatever, but I would hope that they would be smart with this, and they've basically stopped a lot of guys from using finishers they used on the indies because of this reason, right? Because they felt like they were too dangerous. Even on the main roster, AJ Styles is very limited on when he can use a Styles Clash. It's not a lot. Let's be honest. They try to use the the calf crusher
like
or
Randy Orton. He didn't use that move.
Yeah, exactly. And they're trying to be very picky and choosy when they can use it. So any of the other moves, can take place. So I think maybe we may see, if there are other injuries with the Eclipse, we may see a new move put into Ember Moon's set. That way that they can kind of eliminate real injuries from happening if this is not real. This may be very real. I mean, I've not really looked that far into it. So, but touching on the little segment before this match, I want to say this. I think they did a good job. You know why they did a good job? Because they still showcased Peyton Royce and Billie Kay being their normal selves, right? They're very, cocky. They're kind of playing off as like those, I don't want to, I guess I hate to use the word diva, but kind of like divas, or kind of like, just, snotty girls walking around making fun of other people and talking about how great they are, right? So I think that's good. You want more of that stuff, especially if you want people to hate them. That this is the best way to do it without putting them in the ring, calling out somebody, having matches. This is a good way of doing that. And for them to go make fun of Ember Moon through the window and then have Ember Moon come out the door and say, what, and yell at them. I liked it. It felt very real, and it felt just kind of fluid all the way through. So I appreciated the way they did that segment. I don't think it was hokey. I think it worked out the way it needed to work out. And then you get into this match, and it was a pretty decent match. And, though the ending, kind of led to someone getting injured, it was actually a decent match. And it wasn't my favorite one of all, time when it comes to these two in the ring, but it was a decent match, and we kind of got our point across. So, once again, I think it's a good thing that they had this match, but, it's not the best.
Well, I mean, it's like 30 minutes, so how much can you really do in 3 minutes? It's really there to, again, showcase Ember Moon, because after this match, they officially announced that it's Ember Moon and Asuka for TakeOver Orlando. So we know we're getting that match. And we already know as well that whoever wins the big NXT title match next week between Roode and Kassius Ohno will face Shinsuke Nakamura, who we'll get to talk about in a little bit. But we also had Andrade and Almas beat Ho Loon after a sneak attack, and basically he just squashed him after that. I mean, it's a squash for Andrade Almas, who kind of needs this. There's no reason to have this back and forth match with a freaking Ho Loon, who we never really see, and we talked about how he's not, the best wrestler or anything, so.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong when CN Almas needs this win. I mean, they've kind of put him on a path of getting more victories than he had, earlier in his run with WWE, but this is exactly what they need to, at least get him to a point where they can use him in other areas, because for a while there, he was that heel that no one cared about because he was losing, and, doesn't help with basically any heel, so I think this worked out well. It's a squash. It is what it is, So there you go. That's all you really can say.
Exactly. It's squash. I just wish that they would really figure out what the hell they're gonna do with Asuka, or not Asuka, with Almas. I mean, like, they're pushing him, and then the next week they'll have him lose to a guy that's sort of in the same level. So, it's just, is he gonna be somebody that's important on your roster, or is he not?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, to be honest with you, it's a really good point. And, here's the issue. And if they don't have a place for him and they really don't feel like they can use him, they might as well just release him, because, I mean, I don't think the guy is bad enough to get squashed all the time. I think he deserves to get some victories. And he's getting victories now, but they don't have a clear direction for him. And I don't know if they really do in the near future, because I don't see him getting into the big picture of the NXT title anytime soon. And I mean anytime soon. So that could be a problem for him. I don't know. I have a little bit of worry about him sticking around with NXT. He may, but right now not looking so good for me.
Yeah. I feel bad for him, because I feel like this sort of the heel stuff is sort of working for him. It's just, he's not really involved in anything that kind of means anything. So it's like, I wonder if people are really ever going to get a chance to get attached to him or not, because he only goes to a certain level and just is there.
Yeah, that's true.
The Revival are supposed to have a match with the Ely brothers, but the Authors of Pain come in and just whoop them. And then the top guys are out, being smart. Why overexert yourself?
Yeah, and once again, I'm going to point this out, and we just talked about this thing last week in the NXT. The Revival are not the ones taking the beating. They're the ones out there watching and just seeing, what, of course, the Authors of Pain do, and that's just destroy people. So I think that the Revival are getting a front row seat for something that's probably going to be in their future. But at the end of the day, once again, just another squash match, and the Ely brothers come out of this looking not very good, but that's normal. This is just a squash. They'll get there to their point. But yeah, Authors of Pain, dominant as always.
Yes, of course. I mean, I like the shock look on the Revival's face. That kind of made the segment a little bit, because if the Revival just don't react, then it doesn't mean anything. But it's important, right, that the Revival actually show that they're a bit scared of them in a way, without totally saying, okay, we're scared, because, hey, they're important. And you don't want to shrug it off and make it feel like, okay, we're just the Authors of Pain are the third wheel in this. You want them to be all equal in this feud. So I think they're kind of doing in their own way, doing a good job, just for those slight little things. Sometimes it is the little things, and Revival do those so well.
Yeah, they do, and I love the Revival. And once again, I mean, they're one of the better tag teams, right now going. I mean, even if you talk about the main roster, they're so talented. And this is something else to add to that resume of, man, they got good reactions, that they really are believable, and they knock it out of the park again. Even if though they don't have to wrestle, they don't have to get in the ring. But I think, like you said, their facial expressions, the feeling that you got as they were standing out there watching the Ely brothers get destroyed, it tells you the story, and it also gets you ready for them when they do have to face against the Authors of Pain.
Totally true on that. So I think the only couple of things we got to talk about still are the sit-down interviews between Kassius Ohno and Bobby Roode. I think Ohno's is a bit more interesting just because it's kind of the first time we get to hear him talk about how he feels being back in NXT after leaving sort of right when NXT was starting to become something, but not yet. And now he's back after NXT has become this, third brand for WWE, and the takeovers have such a great level to them, and even the takeovers where we think that, there's nothing going on here, and they deliver every time. So, it's now he gets to be one of those guys, and he has a big match with Bobby Roode next week to determine if it's going to be him and Nakamura, which signs point to that's what it's going to be. It looks like, anyway. And then Bobby Roode had his rebuttal there that makes it look like he's either in an office, or it makes it look like he's in some kind of a church, or I don't know. I thought that was funny, but anything to kind of take out of these?
The Bobby Roode one worked for what it was, because it's kind of the same spiel you've gotten from him, right? There's not a lot of difference between this one and some of the other things he said in the past. I mean, his goal is to come in and change the audience, to change NXT, to do all this change of the guard for himself to what he wants to have the mold be. So that's kind of the normal thing from him. So nothing super spectacular. It's good. It's Bobby Roode, but it's just nothing that's any different than usual. The Kassius Ohno one was interesting for all the facts you just said, Sean. And with this fresh face, you kind of want to get a gist of where he's coming from, why he's here at NXT, all that kind of stuff. So you get a little bit of that. But the hard thing for me is I still, for me personally, of course I didn't watch him a lot on the indie circuit. I have a hard time right now still connecting with Kassius Ohno. I think they really need to work at that. I really feel like if a wrestling fan who watches on a weekly basis, who watches different promotions, maybe not the indie circuit as much, but I still watch different promotions. If I'm still sitting here saying I just don't feel a connection with this guy, they've got to figure that out. They've got to find another way besides just telling his story or saying, oh man, he's came from such a great background. They've got to get us on another platform of understanding of who this guy is, why we should care about him. So hopefully they work on that, because at this point right now, I mean, I'm kind of on the Bobby Roode side of this. I kind of don't care if Kassius Ohno wins or not, and that's not good because he's the babyface. So hopefully this works out well. I think it can. I know Kassius Ohno is super talented. It's just right now I want to get invested in this guy, and I'm not there yet.
Yeah, certainly. I can totally get you on that. I think having this match with Bobby Roode is going to be the thing that really gets you to that point of, okay, I'm invested here after this or I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get your main event, TJ Perkins and Shinsuke Nakamura, who returns after suffering the big leg injury where he lost the title. And pretty much TJ Perkins sort of being smart, going after the leg because, hey, his finisher's the E-bar, right? Or at least not on 205 Live it is. And so, it felt like a lot of that, just him kind of going after the leg. And then, Nakamura would sort of shake it off every time. And kind of find ways to get around it. And then, he kind of gets going, hits the big moves, and hits the Kinshasa, and beats TJ Perkins. It was a good back and forth match, though. I think for the time they got, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I think so too. And you kind of expected this going in only because TJP is a really talented wrestler, and Shinsuke Nakamura is amazing. So those two guys together had to work out well, and they did. They had some pretty decent chemistry here, and I appreciated the storytelling and TJP working on the leg, really trying to get at that first, that way that he can take out Nakamura. Didn't work out completely for him, but he had Nakamura on the ropes a little bit here, and it was kind of fun to watch, right? Because you get a chance to see that Perkins is smart, and he is going to do whatever it takes to win a match, even if it's against a guy that had some tragedy and getting injured for a long while, and not taking any pity on him. So I think this is good. I mean, this is what you need, especially at the end of these NXT shows. But not only that, you need something to showcase Nakamura, and that he is going to be okay, and that he's healthy enough to compete.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's the whole point of this, was to make sure that he's okay and he's ready to be back in action, and got no problems with that.
Yeah.
So unless you got anything else, I think nice to have things set for TakeOver. We know what your main championship match is. You know what your tag team title match is. You know what your women's title match is. Just kind of got to fill out the undercard part, but your main stuff is there, and I don't think you can hate on that.
No, you can't at all. And I think they're doing a fine job of getting things kind of set the way they want it. I think we're still going to get it's not some surprises, but get some other storylines that'll probably, like Sean said, fill out the undercard. And I'm glad about that. I think there'll be some really cool stuff involved. So this is going to be, so far, I think some exciting matches for us to check into. And as we get closer, I know it's going to get better. But, at least for this episode, them setting everything up, it worked. It worked out well.
Can totally agree with you on that. And I think that's going to do it for us talking NXT. Of course, always make sure that if you like what you heard here on this review, you can always check out our other single reviews, which are, basically the other WWE shows. And when, we can actually watch a New Japan, Paul and I can watch a New Japan show roughly near when it airs, not like what's going to happen with the anniversary show here. We'll do a separate New Japan show to kind of cover it. Hopefully we can get back to that with the New Japan Cup. 2 shows that are going to air this weekend. And don't forget ROH on Friday night as well. We'll be able to talk about that on the Monday show. But before that, we have our W10 Part 2, Episode 237 that you want to go make sure you check out, along with this and all of our other reviews from the week. So, and of course, check out WTMNet.com. Subscribe to that WTM network for all of our other great things, including the Rad Legend Broadcasting that has made its debut this week. It was Wolverine week. And there was even a review of the new movie Logan from Mark Radledge and Robert Winfrey that you want to check out. So lots of stuff for you guys. So hope you enjoy, and we will see you next week with some more NXT. Until then, later, everybody.
Later.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.